Are you ready to become awesomer? Hello everyone, this is Umar Hamid, your host, and welcome to the No Limit Selling Podcast, where industry leaders share their tips, strategies, and advice on how to make you better, stronger, faster. Get ready for another episode. Today, I have the privilege of having my friend Jim White here with me today. I'm so excited about this conversation, Jim.
I am too. I really am looking forward to this. I mean, we have so many things that we've shared over the years, and we're working in similar arenas. It's great fun to see you.
So, a long time ago, I asked you this question. Jim, have you ever had a life-changing moment? And you said, yes, Umar, when I died in Singapore.
That's right.
So why don't we start when you died?
When I died in Singapore. I was consulting in Singapore, and I was very, very stressed. I was doing marketing, and I was running a workshop with the National Productivity Board, and I had stayed up late one night, and then woke up at 4 o'clock. Oh no, woke up at 8 o'clock realizing I was supposed to be on stage at 8 o'clock.
Wow.
Yeah. So then I felt it in my chest, felt it in my arm. I knew what was happening. And so I eventually, got to the hospital, and I went out, and then they brought me back. And eventually I had open heart surgery, and I'm still here.
And one of the things you said is that experience got you on your new path, which
Yes,
was to make an impact in the world.
Exactly. I had been working with the international work and training, leadership development kinds of things, and this opened my eyes to a whole arena of emotion, our emotions, how they impact us, how I was breaking my own heart by my own behavior. And I was drinking too much, and I was overworking, I was highly stressed, and all of a sudden a light bulb went on, and it began me on a new trajectory. And it was a slow trajectory. It's getting involved in research on emotions and how that impacts. And so I began
this journey.
I began the journey.
And part of what you do now is neuro leadership, teaching people that this new amazing science of neuroscience, that we can make it practical and not etheric that just neurosurgeons need to know, but human beings connecting with each other, leading other human beings, being a better human being, being a better parent.
Yes, and I'm very excited about this. I just think it opens, as you're saying, so many possibilities for us to take more charge of how we show up, and how we work with our own minds, and how we work with other people. And there's some major breakthroughs in neuroscience that are informing what you can do from a neuro leadership perspective, or working with groups or teams, or trying to impact what's going on in an organization. And it begins with self-awareness and continuing this journey of how aware am I of my emotions, how they impact what I do and how I interact. And then realizing that there's a science behind that, and there are practices that are attached to that you can bring forward. And the exciting thing is that we can take charge of our minds in lots of ways that we have intuited for a long time, and now there's science behind it as well.
Intuited, yes, but I think one of the problems was that somebody just ended up figuring this thing out, and they just do it naturally. But when you ask them, what are you doing, how are you doing it, a lot of times they can't articulate it.
No, it's hard to articulate.
What this has done, what you've done, is actually bring it down to say, hey, here are the 5 things you need to pay attention to.
Right.
So
right.
What's the conversation we're going to have today?
Well, I think the conversation is about what's possible.
Right. And so you were mentioning that there were like 5 key things. I think there's a way of, there are so many things going on in neuroscience, and there are many, many ways of approaching it. And we've come up with, or I've played around with, some breakthroughs that have to do with neuroplasticity. One is neuroplasticity. Another one is willpower and Yes.
the nature of willpower. Another one is our default mode network and our negativity bias that's inborn for us. Another one is emotional contagion and the fact that we are like neural Wi-Fi. When we come into contact with other people, we are impacting them whether we believe it or not. And then there's the other one that has to do with attachment. And attachment, then it's tied in with attachment and making and, approaching, avoiding, or attaching kinds
Yes.
of things. So as themes and ways of looking at how we operate. What I work to do is incorporate those lenses into the work that I do, not to necessarily train people in all of these 5, but to use this to inform my designs, my workshops, the kind of activities I plan and get engaged in, or the kind of practices I encourage people to get involved in.
Brilliant. So let's go take a deeper look at each one of those.
Okay.
One of the 5 was willpower.
Willpower.
So talk to me about willpower.
Well, and this is based on a lot of research that's done on, popularized by Kelly McGonigal, who's written a book called The Willpower Instinct. Basically, there are, I'll just play many times the idea of willpower is that I will do this and I'm going to white knuckle it.
Yeah.
Or I'm not going to do this and I will never do that. And those are the kinds of things most of us bring in when we make a New Year's resolution. We won't eat a Krispy Kreme ever again.
Right.
We're going to go to the gym every day. By damn, we're going to go to the gym every day. And I think it's by January 20th, most of those resolutions have kind of fade away. And there's another power called I want. So I will, I won't, and I want. The I will and I won't are push and or resist or push.
Yeah.
And the I want is a pull.
Yes.
So what we're working when we talk about using neuroscience to think about what we do in groups of teams, let's say strategic planning. We have these incredible goals, strategies, etc. And then in organizations, many times they fall by the wayside, not reinforced enough, or we make these other commitments. When we hook into a higher pull, things that I want, in Hinduism, it's called a sankalpa. Mm-hmm. It's your vow to your life. Other places, it's what's your ultimate purpose, what's your passion, all of that.
Labeled different things, but they're same thing we're talking about. Yeah.
The same idea is that you're working to create a pull that you can come back to remind yourself. So when I won't doesn't work and I will doesn't work as well, when you go to I want, it allows those other dimensions to work. And those are different brain systems that are at play. And so So
give me an example of I want. How is that? I understand the I won't and I will.
Right.
The I want, how is that different than I will?
Rather than I'm going to be on a diet and I will do this diet and I will keep it, the higher I want is I want to live a healthy life.
Yes.
I have a purpose. I have a purpose in life, and that is to contribute to life's
So it's more like a journey, more of a path thing versus a specific.
Exactly. It's a goal versus a journey would be a way of thinking about it. It's something that is compelling you. Some of us wake up every morning. Some of us will wake up every morning with a song in our heart and a skip in our step, because we are compelled or being pulled in a particular direction. When we can articulate that, then we can intentionally come back to it.
So when you said the I won't, it kind of reminded me of this quote, and I don't remember who said it, but I'll find out who said it, and I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
And I'm going to paraphrase. And it was a sports team kind of thing, and this guy was saying that, you should never, ever date a fellow player's girlfriend or look at her in a lustful way. Then he went on to say, well, not unless she's really cute or something. So the second thing was the emotional contagion.
Yes, this is tied in with the research that's done in mirror neurons and the way we are brain-to-brain connected. And I think one way of illustrating this would be to ask folks the question, have you ever been sitting in a meeting and it's been going very well and people are having a great conversation, and somebody walks in the room?
And it changes the entire feeling?
The whole feeling changes, and you can feel it sink. Sometimes you can feel it actually rise.
Yep.
But many times for us in organizations, we feel it actually sink. And what we're picking up are, and this sounds so 1960s hippie-ish Northern California, but you're picking up on the vibes. And the vibes are actually physiological. They're real. And so we are communicating with each other on so many different dimensions all the time. And the neural Wi-Fi, or this emotional contagion, is just a part, not just, but is a part of communication. How we communicate with each other.
So one of the things I do is when I work one-on-one with clients, or in a therapeutics NLP session, is I sync up with them, get into deep rapport.
Yep.
And what happens when I do that is
oftentimes I get a feeling, and it could be a really uncomfortable feeling as I'm sitting down with Jim, and I get it over here, and I go, am I feeling this feeling because of me or because of you? And sometimes I go, well, I got nothing to be anxious about. Then I know with certainty that you're feeling that feeling right there, and I'm just picking it up because I'm in sync with you.
Yes.
And what I would do is just place my hand where I feel that feeling and go, so how does that make you feel? And because I'm doing that physical thing there,
right,
the client goes, oh, I'm feeling really anxious about it. And it was a feeling I was picking up.
Very cool.
So here's the validation of it.
Very cool.
Is at the end of the day, I would come home, have dinner with my wife. We'd get into bed. And then she would say, did you clear off your energy today?
Right.
And I would say, no. Did you work with someone that had anxiety about this?
Wow.
And it was me picking up their energy.
Right.
4 hours later, I'm still carrying it.
You're still carrying it.
And then when she's quiet in bed, like when you're like moving around, sometimes she wouldn't pick it up. But when we got into bed, it was like she could pick up, there's a disquieting energy, and she could label it.
Yes.
And it was like, okay, I'm getting out of bed. I'm going to go clear the energy off and come back. So yeah, we pick up that stuff and we see it as an obstacle, but it's the biggest gift that we have.
It is a gift.
If you pay attention to it and you know it's there.
That's incredible. How do you clear?
So one of the ways to clear is just imagine that you have a connection from, actually it's between your tailbone.
Okay.
And so the center of your body, so just a couple of inches off.
Okay.
Just imagine you have a connection from that to the center of the earth. And as soon as you, it's called grounding. As soon as you get that connection, you feel still. And then you just envision any negative energy that isn't yours just going down your body, and it just releases.
You let it dissolve. Oh,
so do you really have a connection to the earth? I don't know. Does it work? I've taught hundreds of people this technique, and probably 2% go, you're nuts. But 98% go, oh my God, this is so amazing. I feel that instant calming, and I felt that negative energy leave my body. And so that's kind of our worldview, I think, in terms of, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. The question is it useful? If it's useful, let's use it. Maybe with the science today, we can't validate it. And maybe with the science tomorrow, they'll say, no, it's total bullshit. Or they'll say, this is why it works.
This is why. And I think that's what we're seeing with regard to this emotional contagion and a lot of other kinds of things that are going on, is that science has been validating things that currently that have historically been out of contemplative wisdom traditions.
Yes.
And the Eastern ways of thinking about things and the mind-body connection. And now there's just so much more going on with looking at what the mind-body connection is about. And that's exactly what you did with the clearing, is that it's a mind-body connection. You ask your mind to clear your, clear out your, clear those feeling states that you have. You imagine it happens.
Bingo. And there's that third piece that's kind of implied in there. And I always say, mind, body, soul.
Yes.
And there's that trinity of stuff there. So on this amazing visual representation, what we're talking about, which we're going to put in the show notes.
Okay.
Tell me about this one.
Default mode network. Okay. Let's ask the question of the audience. How many of us here have a voice in our head?
Almost everybody would say yes.
Yes. Okay.
And what percentage would say negative? Most of them.
Most of it. Exactly.
If not all of them.
If not all of it. And this is the chatter, according to the research that is there. And this is your brain systems at play that are set up for you to scan the environment so that you can be safe. And there is a constant chatter that goes on, and it really falls into 4 dimensions. How am I feeling about the present moment? I don't like it, I do like it. Past or future. 2, worrying about the future, regretting the past. Or there's how I feel about this individual and these people, or the other side of that, how do they feel about me? 4 dimensions. They're always there cross-culturally. Can be in New Guinea, Australian Aboriginals. You can be North Africa. Folks in the Arab world, Europeans. We all share that.
If you're human,
that's what you have, and that's what creates, from many traditions, the kind of suffering that we have, as individuals when we pay attention to those voices. And there are tools and techniques and ways of working with those voices that help you begin not to control them so that you damp them down, because they're always going to be there, but it's learn to live with them, incorporate them, and move to a different perspective with them. And that has to do with their meditative practices and mind-body kinds of things.
Here's one that I teach. So, Jim, if you can be brave, what's one of your inner voices? What's his favorite thing to say that to sabotage your efforts?
They're going to catch you. You're a phony.
So, can you give me one example of you definitely not being a phony, where you knew your shit? Right now? Give me another example of a time that you were leading or being where you just knew with certainty that you know this stuff, you're not a phony.
I can think back on when I was a gig that I had about a month ago where I'm facilitating a workshop, and I don't know where the information comes from. It's kind of like channeling it.
Right, and it just came, right?
It just comes.
So what I teach people is when the negative voice comes up, what you can do is you can battle it, try pushing it, but that's going to be a lot stronger than you are.
It pushes back.
It pushes back, and it knows where the vulnerabilities are, and it's going to hit you in the gonads.
Right.
But what if you said yes, and here are 3 counterexamples of legitimately when I was the bomb, where there was no doubt that I was a phony.
Right.
And as soon as you give the 3 counterexamples, you give one, then if it comes back, you give the second one. If it comes back, you give the third one. Usually by the third time, it says, you're not playing fair, and it goes away.
Going away. Yeah.
And so collecting those moments, you know what those negative voices say. You could have, let's say, 5 different phrases. Just have counterexamples for each.
Right.
And when it comes up, agree with it.
Yes, agree and build.
Yeah. And but is a bad word.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful world.
Yeah.
You're probably right. And remember the time over here where I won this award. Right. And remember the time over here when... And so anyway, there's many strategies out there.
And
I
works.
Guess what we're looking to do, and what I hope you guys are looking to do, is to just collect them. Do you need all those clubs in a freaking golf bag?
That's right.
Apparently you do.
You do.
And so we need different tactics to take care of those negative dialogue.
Right.
And a 9 club might be good for me, and a wedge might be good for you, and we're all different. And if we can just catalog those for humanity,
well,
I mean, how many places are we really, really stuck? We have the negative inner voice.
Right.
We have this beliefs around self.
Right.
That sometimes are negative.
Yeah.
Our ability to be loved or deserving.
Right.
So they could be maybe, there's probably a billion different hang-ups, but they probably condense down to maybe 7 popular ones, and they're just different.
They're just kind of just different degrees of it, but the same kind of thing. Yeah.
That we could collect for those 7. What if we could collect 50 ways to tackle each one? So that's 7 times 50. Who's good at math?
That's right.
There's not that many. If we put the word out and say, okay, how do you take care of this? Yeah. And then we could just get a body of knowledge that's figure out what's right for you.
It's an interest. That's a great idea. And one of the things that with regard to collecting those kinds of things, what I've learned about a little bit, and you probably use it in your NLP work as well, is that when you discover one of those things that really works, is that when you discover it, to somehow anchor it, to somehow hold it for at least 20 seconds in your feeling state. And by doing that, you begin to rewire the way in which you consistently come back to that. So that's a part of, and when every time it comes up, every time you bring that back, as I understand it, and you don't know more about this than I do, but as I understand it, that you are actually, we're rewiring our brains, and that's an intentional way. It's called self-directed neuroplasticity, which is another thing that we'll talk about in a second. But you can change your mind to change your brain to change your mind. And
Brilliant.
Rick Hansen is the author of Buddha's Brains, and another series of books has coined that from other research.
So let's go into that neuroplasticity.
Okay. So what we know, we've always known that we learn. So our brains and our minds change, our brains change. And what what the discoveries have been is that, yeah, they change, and here's what's going on, is that there are actually physical changes in your brain when you're learning something, and that attention and focus helps to strengthen that, so that sort of passing states, continuing to pass as states, become traits. And so you are focusing on the self-directed neuroplasticity. You can change your mind to change your brain to change your mind. And we'll get to this in a second, paying attention that the negative is like Velcro and Teflon, and the positive is like Teflon. So when you start working with changing your states, etc., that you're paying attention to, the fact that negative will come up and is harder to deal with, even those voices or whatever it happens to be. So the efforts that we make, it's not that we need to make harder efforts, it means we need to make smarter efforts, which are
absolutely
planned. Yeah.
And before we started this podcast, we were talking about how we make a lot of shit up.
We make a lot.
And how a lot of things are built on faulty information. So I'll give you an example. For a lot of years, we knew with certainty that the brain does not change. When you reach a certain age, it gets locked in, and it just gets diminished as we get older.
That's what we knew is certain. For certain.
Except. And still, Sir Isaac Newton developed the theory of gravity.
Right.
Einstein, theory of relativity.
Right.
Planck, string theory. We still did these amazing things that moved humanity forward with bad information.
Right.
And now that we've got this neuroplasticity, which is a better model, at some point we're going to find out it isn't. So I guess it goes back to that point of find things that are useful and use those.
Exactly.
And we can still move humanity forward, and then later on we can make the model better.
Exactly. And I think what you're speaking to, it seems like with these kinds of ideas, as we play around with them, where they will take us, they will take us in directions that if we did not have them, we would not have gone.
Absolutely.
And it may turn out at the end that we were really off base in terms of the science of it, and something else is going on, etc. But look where we might have come, even as a result of having a, quote, bad idea.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Speaking of bad ideas, it's a great time for us to end this podcast.
Okay.
And we need to do another one soon.
We will.
Jim, thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
You're so welcome. It's great to be here. Thank you very much.
If you enjoyed this episode, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. And if you're looking for more tools, go to my website at NoLimitSelling.com. I've got a free mind training course there that's going to teach you some insights from the world of neuro-linguistic programming, and that is the fastest way to get better results.